Hey guys, welcome to Film World. Today I'm going to explain a mystery thriller film called Every Breath You Take from 2021. Turn on subtitles and spoilers ahead. The movie opens with Grace and Evan driving back home at night. Grace is talking to Evan while driving, and she crashes into another car. The scene changes, and we see the whole family grieving the loss of Evan in that accident. His sister Lucy dropped out of school. There's tension present in the house all the time. We see Philip, the dad, who's a psychiatrist, talking to patients. One patient is given particular attention. Her name is Daphne. She's struggling with her relationships, and Philip is guiding her and taking notes. After he's done talking, Grace comes to talk to him about moving away for some time. But Philip seems distant and brushes her off, saying he's busy. The next day, Philip is seen giving a lecture at a seminar. He tells the students about Daphne, how she struggled with drug addiction and her relationships. Her mom died when she was very little, and it affected her deeply. So he chooses an unconventional way to treat her by disclosing his life to her, so that they can have a good bond. After 6 months, her symptoms go away, and she even starts writing a book about her journey. Philip's colleague, another professor named Vanessa, is unhappy about Philip's approach with Daphne and asks him about it after the seminar, saying he shouldn't disclose his personal life to his clients. She then asks about Grace and Lucy and expresses that she's excited to meet them tonight. The scene changes to Philip driving back home, and Daphne calls him with a shaking voice. Her best friend just died in a hit and run. Philip tries to calm her down and tells her to meet him tomorrow as quickly as she can to let it all out. That night, we see Vanessa and her husband enjoying some drinks with Grace and Philip after dinner on the couch. Vanessa is complaining about her husband being bad at attending their children's sports events. The topic turns to hockey and eventually to Evan because Evan used to play hockey. Philip starts talking about it, and Grace stops him as she doesn't want to listen. Lucy comes to inform Philip that the police are knocking on their door. They take him to Daphne's place, and we see that Daphne is dead. The cops suspect that she took her own life as there's no sign of foul play. They called Philip because he was saved in her phone as an emergency contact. Daphne's brother arrives there and starts screaming upon seeing Daphne, and the police pull him away. James, the brother, finally calms down. Philip introduces himself to James. James starts opening up to him, saying how he feels his family is cursed, and all of them have died except him. Daphne was really close to Joan, and she called James too after the accident, but Daphne sounded calm, so he wasn't that worried. Philip tells him not to blame himself, as the same thing happened to him too. He never thought Daphne would do something like this. The scene changes to Philip asking for help from Vanessa. He has to take a break. Vanessa assures him and tells him to take as much time as he needs. The scene cuts to Grace getting out of the pool after a good swim. She goes to see Philip and finds him looking at the notes he took about Daphne. The next day, James turns up at their house. Lucy opens the door and is kind of surprised and blushing to see James. Grace comes out and greets James. She gives her condolences and calls for Philip. James gives Philip the book Daphne borrowed from him and starts to leave when Grace tells him to stay for dinner. Philip hesitates, but Grace pushes James to stay anyway. At dinner, James tells them about himself. He lived in England his whole life. He's trying to write a book. His first attempt failed, but the second time he succeeded. Lucy seems smitten by him. He then asks Grace what she does, and she explains that she's a real estate agent. James then asks Lucy what she wants to be in life, but she can't reply properly. After dinner, James starts leaving and tells Philip that he has a beautiful family. The next day, Philip goes to his friend to ask him to get James's book for him. His friend assures him that he can, but it'll take 1 or 2 weeks. The scene cuts to Lucy, and her classmates are bad-mouthing her in front of her. Feeling bad, she goes in front of the lake and lights a cigarette. There, she meets James. She is surprised to see him there, and he tells her that his family docks their boat here. He noticed her, so he came to say hello. They share a cigarette. James invites her to have some coffee if she has time. While having coffee, James asks her why she was going home alone. Lucy hesitates and tells him that it's her first day here. Before this place, she was at a boarding school, but she was kicked out because of her drug addiction. James feels sorry for her and tries to make her laugh. The scene cuts to Vanessa, and she's reading a complaint to Philip that she got about Philip using unethical approaches to treat Daphne. The person also claims that Philip is the one who drove Daphne to commit suicide. Philip tells her that it's just a random complaint, and she can't accuse him because of this. Moreover, he had to do this to make her trust him. The scene goes back to Lucy and James. They're now walking back to Lucy's home. James asks Lucy to let him be her first friend here. Lucy starts blushing and accepts. During lunch, Grace notices that Lucy seems happier, so she asks her how school was. Lucy replies positively. Philip also comes out for lunch. While getting ready to go to bed, Grace tells Philip that James came to their office asking for their help to sell his sister's house. Philip isn't happy to hear this, but pretends that it's fine. The next day, we see Grace waiting for James to meet with her about the house, but he doesn't show up. So she calls him, and he finally picks up. The next scene shows Grace driving up to James's house. James tells her he's sorry for what happened to their son, and says that she can relate to his sadness. This catches Grace off guard, but she starts expressing how sad she feels all the time, and how she and Philip are getting more and more distant. Grace gets flashbacks of that night and starts sobbing. James comforts her and holds her hands. Meanwhile, Philip calls one of his patients' moms to ask why they didn't show up. She informs him that they have decided to take him to a new therapist because of the rumors spreading about Philip. Philip feels hopeless. The next morning, we see Grace making breakfast. Philip gets up too. Lucy gets ready to go out. Philip stops her and starts asking where she is going and who she is going with. Lucy lies, saying it's one of her seniors who got into Yale, but she is actually meeting with James, who is waiting for her outside the house. James takes her to the dock, turns on the lights, and it all looks very dreamy. Lucy starts sharing what's going on with her family after her half-brother Evan died. James starts guessing how her life has changed, and Lucy is confused about how he knows all this. James simply says it's written all over her face. He then slowly starts caressing her face. The scene cuts to Philip and he gets a call from Vanessa. She tells him that she got another 2 letters threatening her about Philip. She doesn't know how long she can hold this. Vanessa asks whether Philip has any enemies. Philip says he doesn't think so. Lucy comes back home and slowly closes the door behind her. Grace is taking a bath. She's remembering all the time she spent with James and how he is comforting her, trying to help her. Philip comes to the bathroom and sits beside the bathtub. He asks Grace how she is and how work was. Grace is a bit surprised as he hasn't asked her something like this in a long time. Philip then slowly asks her about James. Grace gets annoyed and leaves. Philip then goes to James's place and tells him to find a new agent to sell his house. James acts confused and replies that it will take some time for him to sell anyway. He finally agrees to find a new agent. Philip starts leaving and James stops him and asks him to help him move the couch. Philip shrugs, but helps anyway. After they're done, James indirectly tells Philip that he is responsible for Daphne's death. The scene cuts to Philip explaining everything to Vanessa and how he suspects that James is coming after him because he thinks Philip is responsible for his sister's death. The scene cuts to James picking up Lucy from her house. In the car, Lucy tells James how her stepmother has gone on a tour, and it's very unlikely of her to do so. James just listens. They then go to a party. They dance together and have drinks. James goes to grab something when Lucy notices Vanessa entering the party, so she hides in a corner. James comes back, and they leave the party. In the car, Lucy thanks James for everything and asks him to take her with him when he leaves. The scene cuts to Philip trying to get closer to Grace while they are in bed, but Grace becomes upset instead and tells him to stop. The next day, Philip follows Grace and sees that she has gone to James's house. Philip gets very upset but can't do anything. Grace tells James that they have to end things, but James starts coming closer, and they end up in bed. Meanwhile, Philip is going crazy outside. After they're done, Grace doesn't say much and leaves. After she leaves, James calls to make a complaint about Philip again. Vanessa gets notified about the complaint and tries to find out who's making the complaints, but James's identity was kept anonymous. Meanwhile, Grace is inside her car, sobbing. The scene cuts to Philip getting called into Vanessa's office. Vanessa tells him about the complaint. She tells him that he's suspended from teaching classes the next semester. Moreover, they'll revoke his license if he doesn't prove his innocence. The scene cuts to Lucy meeting with James. He takes her to the dock again. They chat about where they're going to run off to. James leaves to get something. His phone starts buzzing and Lucy notices that it's Grace. She gets upset and starts running away. James follows her and tells her that they met coincidentally in town and talked about selling his sister's house. Lucy believes him. James pulls her closer and they kiss. He drops her off in front of her house and tells her to pack her bag as he'll pick her up tonight. Meanwhile, Grace is swimming in the pool, screaming her heart out. After she is done with her shower, Philip sits beside her on the couch. He tells her he's sorry for blaming her all this time for Evan's death when he knew that wasn't true. Grace starts crying and confesses that she has to tell him something too. But Philip tells her not to tell him, as he was the one who made her feel alone all this time. Realizing that he knows everything, Grace starts crying more, and Philip hugs her. Meanwhile, Lucy is in her room waiting for James but gets no response from him. She keeps calling and texting him, but there's no response. We see James sitting in front of his laptop, completely ignoring Lucy's calls. In the morning, we see James running somewhere. The scene cuts to Grace, and she's trying to start her car but is having problems. She gets out to check what happened and notices James saying hello to her. James asks whether he could help her. Grace hesitates, but finally agrees. James calls AAA and, in the meantime, offers Grace a ride to the pharmacy. Grace hesitantly agrees. After getting in his car, Grace notices that his passenger seatbelt is broken. James assures her that it's fine. James starts driving and misses the first turn. Grace points it out to him, but he ignores her and starts driving faster. This scares her, and she notices that her phone is buzzing. Philip is calling her. James tells her to pick up the call. Philip asks where she is, but Grace can't say anything. James starts speeding, and Grace begs him to stop. Grace tries to stop him, and he bumps her hand on the window. He takes the call and starts talking to Philip. He tells him that he's on Windsor Road and to come get him. Philip rushes over there and starts following James's car. James stops the car, and Philip rushes over to check on Grace when James starts the car again. He starts speeding toward a truck. Philip also follows him. But at the last moment, James stops. Grace jumps out of the car, and Philip hugs her tightly. Philip then drags James out of his car and starts beating him. The truck driver pulls Philip away from James. That night, Philip talks with Vanessa about their next step. The police can't do much about James because Grace got into his car willingly. Vanessa asks whether they can get a restraining order, which they can, but James is nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Lucy is a mess inside her room. Grace and Philip decide to talk with Lucy about it the next morning. Lucy comes out of her room the next morning looking like a mess. Grace tries to talk to her about James, but she lashes out at Grace and goes back to her room. Grace tells Philip to talk to her, and the same thing happens. Philip starts feeling really bad about behaving like this with Lucy. Grace comforts him, saying it's not his fault. Philip gets a call from the hospital. James has turned himself in, and he's saying his mental state is not good, and he's hearing voices. James has told them he'll only talk to Philip, so the hospital makes an appeal to Philip. Having no other choice, Philip goes with Vanessa to meet James. James tells him he's sorry at first, and that he got all the information about Philip from the book Daphne was writing about herself. Philip tells him that he doesn't need to know these things anymore. The guards start dragging James away, but he starts taunting Philip, saying how he can still smell Grace. That night, James calls Philip again and starts saying nonsense. Philip cuts the call and locks the house door. The next day, Vanessa comes to talk with Philip. She tells him how James keeps talking about the accident in Portland. Philip tells her that he doesn't want to know anything about James anymore. The scene cuts to Grace and Philip leaving to go somewhere. They're leaving Lucy alone in the house. The scene cuts to Vanessa, her husband, Grace, and Philip enjoying drinks. Vanessa's husband gives Philip James Flagg's book. Philip notices that the real James is a different one. He's Daphne's abusive ex-boyfriend, Eric. Philip discovers that Eric is psychotic. He killed Joan to make Daphne distraught in hopes that she would return to him. And when she didn't, he murdered Daphne. Philip realizes Eric has been taunting his family because Philip had helped Daphne end her relationship with Eric. Philip calls Dr. Toth to order him to lock Eric down, but Eric has already escaped after killing a security guard. Realizing that Eric is going after Lucy, Philip and Grace race back to their house. Eric attacks Lucy, and after a violent struggle, Grace kills him with the blade of Evan's old ice skating boot. The three embrace as the police sirens approach. That's how the movie ends. To watch more explanations of these kinds of movies, click on the videos on your screen. And don't forget to let me know how you feel about today's video in the comments down below. And at last, thanks for watching.